Hello and welcome to section 4 of chapter 3. Today we're going to look at energy and metabolism. So ultimately we're going to look at where living things get their energy, how chemical reactions occur, and why enzymes are important to living things. So to begin with, we have to understand how changing matter and matter affects living organisms. And before we can get to that, we have to understand what matter is and how things change. So living things are made of what we call matter. And matter consists of a substance with form. Okay, so changes are constantly occurring within living things, okay? And you can think of things internally, that your body is just going. I mean, it could be after you eat, it could be because you are hungry, it could be cells dying, cells repairing themselves. It could be a multitude of different things, okay, both that are affected by external factors and internal factors. So changes are constantly occurring. However, we have two different types of changes. We have what we call a physical change. And a physical change is a change that occurs only to the form or the shape of the matter. So in other words, our substance is still the same, we're just maybe changing its shape. And the best example I can think of is if you take a piece of paper, okay, and you crumple it up, you still have a piece of paper, but we took it from a nice, let's say an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper where it was nice and smooth and flat. And when you crumple it up, now we've changed its shape into like a wrinkly, kind of like paper wadded up ball. Okay, so that would be considered a physical change. Then we have what we call a chemical change. And a chemical change occurs when we actually change the composition of that substance. So what that means is it's turning into a new substance. So if you take that same piece of paper that we just started out with and you burn that piece of paper, that burnt piece of paper has now become ash. Okay, and ash is a carbon-based product, so it's no longer that piece of paper that you were able to write on. It's now become something new, or it's changed over into a different substance, which would be ash. Now with matter, we have a couple things that we have to keep in mind. Okay, one of those is you have to know that matter is neither created nor destroyed. Okay, so regardless of what is happening, matter cannot be either made up or destroyed or taken away. Okay, so this observation is what we call the law of the conservation, and I'm sure you've heard of this before, conservation of mass. Okay, so the law of conservation of mass just states that you cannot either make up or destroy matter. Okay, it has to be accounted somewhere. Likewise, the ability to move or change matter is what we call energy. Okay, so we can change its form or we can move it. We can move matter, but we can't create or destroy it. So when we do that, this is done through energy. So energy exists in many forms. Okay, and it can be converted from one form to another form. And every change in matter requires a change in energy. So the two do go hand in hand. So what I would like for you to do real quick is pause the video. Out on the Maurer Math website, I do have a link to the What is Energy video. I think this is like a 4-minute video, so if you guys can take a quick second, hop over and watch that real quick, and then just come back. Now, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, energy may change from one form to another, but the total amount of energy does not change. Okay, and it's very similar to the law of conservation of mass, but the observation where energy can't be created or destroyed, but it can go from one form to another, but it's not going to be created or destroyed. This is called the law of conservation of energy. Okay, so very similar to that of the conservation of mass. So essentially, mass and energy cannot be created or destroyed. The total amount of usable energy decreases because some of the energy is given off to the surroundings. Now, we don't think about this, but heat is actually a form of energy. Okay, so sometimes if you if you want to think about something like those little hand warmers, okay, if you put a hand warmer in and you snap that little thing inside of the package, it immediately warms up that little hand warmer, which is the whole purpose of it. Okay, as that thing is giving off heat, it's giving off a form of energy. So sometimes energy, we don't see energy being transformed, but you can feel it like in the form of a heat. Okay, living things use different chemical reactions to get the energy that they need for their life processes. To change a substance, we have to have some type of a chemical reaction occur. So during this process of a chemical reaction, bonds between atoms are going to be broken, and they have to be broken in order for a reaction to occur, and then new ones are going to be formed. So you have to break current bonds and create new ones in order to have a chemical reaction take place. So inside of every type of chemical reaction, we have what we call a reactant. And the reactant is a substance that is changed in a chemical reaction. So I like to think about that as that's what you're starting out with. So if you have two things, let's say you're taking baking soda and vinegar, okay, those would be your reactants. Once you mix those are going to react and create what we call a product. So a product is the new substance that is formed. Okay, so a reactant is your starting substances that is going to change in a chemical reaction, and then the product is the result or the new substance that is formed in a chemical reaction. Now, once in a while, you'll see that products can sometimes form reactants, but we'll talk about that later. Now, there's going to be times when you have two substances that you go and you try to mix or you heat up or you do something to, and you're not going to get a reaction, okay? And that's because not everything will react. And there's a few different reasons for that. One of those reasons are you have to have what we call activation energy. Okay, so chemical reactions can only occur underneath the right conditions. So to form new bonds, the particles must collide fast enough to overcome the repulsion. So if you remember when we were talking about atoms and ions and all that kind of stuff, here we have our protons and our neutrons inside of the nucleus, and then outside you have all these negatively charged electrons floating around in that electron cloud. So if two atoms get close enough together, so let's say I have another atom that comes up, okay, so we have our protons and neutrons here, and we have our electrons on the outside, okay. What ultimately happens is when you have two negative charges that come in contact with each other, they want to repel, okay. So in order to get new bonds to form, the particles have to be fast enough to where this level of repulsion isn't allowed to happen. It's going to happen so quickly because it's got so much energy that those bonds are going to be able to break because they can overcome that repulsion. So the activation energy of a reaction is the minimum kinetic energy that is required to start a chemical reaction. Again, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and go watch the short clip on what is activation energy, and then you can come back and finish up. So now, once we have enough activation energy, we still have to have certain things in place in order for a reaction to occur, okay? And one of those things is called alignment. So even if you have enough energy, something still might not react or form a new product. Okay, we also have to have the correct orientation. okay, of those particles. If the particles aren't in the proper orientation, then they're not going to be able to react either. So chemical reactions can only occur when you have the right activation energy and that it's available, and your atoms have to be correctly aligned. So if you look at this little chart here, okay, we have the scenario where we have our reactants, okay, however there's not enough energy, therefore no reaction will occur and no products will come about. Okay, we can have another condition where we have enough energy here, okay, but they're not in the correct orientation. So if we have enough energy but the wrong orientation, you're not going to get a reaction, therefore no products will form. Then we have the third scenario where we have enough energy, everything's aligned like it should, we get a reaction, and therefore we're able to form new products. Okay, so these are the reaction conditions that we must have in order for a chemical reaction to occur. We're going to stop right here with part 1, and we will pick up with 3.4 part 2 tomorrow. Thanks, and have a great day.